What's up everyone? My name is Kelsey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing the Deathly Hallows book tag. I was tagged by Lenny at the White Book Cottage. Thanks so much for tagging me. The original tag was made by Susie Reads Books and Haley Marie Reads, and I'll leave their videos linked down below, as well as the White Book Cottage channel. I'm filming this on St. Patrick's Day, thus the leprechaun cat shirt, and I'm having a beer to celebrate. If you're curious, this is the Kona Big Wave Golden Ale. It's one of my favorites. So let's get into the questions. First up is Elder Wand, the most powerful wand in the world, said to be unbeatable during duels. Name 3 of the most powerful books you've ever read. There are a bunch of different ways to interpret this, so I have books that are powerful in totally different ways. First is The Hunger Games, which I don't have a physical copy of because I think it's actually my brother's. But this book was powerful for me, first of all, because I really enjoyed the book. I read it when I was in high school and I became obsessed with it, like most people who read it my age. But the reason it was so powerful for me is because it's what got me into fantasy and sci-fi type books. Before I read The Hunger Games, I mostly read like contemporary and adult fiction and thrillers, mysteries, things like that. And it wasn't until books like The Hunger Games started coming out that I really dove into the fantasy, dystopian, sci-fi world. So basically The Hunger Games changed the kind of books I was reading completely. Next is Watchers by Dean Koontz, and this is powerful to me because it was the first adult book I read. I read this in 3rd grade. I was probably a little young for it, but my parents were the kind of parents that if I wanted to read it, I was allowed to read it. And once I read Watchers, I pretty much never stopped reading adult fiction. After I read this book, I got really into Stephen King and the rest of Dean Koontz's work, which is very thriller-based, lots of paranormal type horror. And from there, I got into adult thrillers and didn't even go back to young adult books until I was in high school. So pretty much most of my childhood and middle school years, I was reading adult fiction. So this is another one that was powerful in a way that it changed the kind of work I was reading. Last, I have Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which I listened to on audiobook, so I don't have a physical copy, but this was just a powerful book in its content. The subtitle is Stories from a South African Childhood, and it basically tells the story of Trevor Noah growing up in South Africa during apartheid, or just after the end of apartheid, where it was basically illegal for him to even be alive. So it was really powerful in an emotional way for me and in a historical way, because I knew what apartheid was in a factual way, but it's hard to picture the ramifications of actual people for something like that, and this book really brought it home. Our next question or prompt is Resurrection Stone, a stone with the power to temporarily bring back those who have died. Name 3 books that should be resurrected. Again, there's multiple ways to interpret this. So first I have On Writing by Stephen King. This was originally published in 2000 and then re-released this edition was released in 2010. I don't know if it's been released again since then, but this is part memoir, part writing advice, part how to read critically. And it's a great book in all of those ways. And it really helped me get better at reading critically in terms of actual writing style. So I would recommend this to anyone that likes memoirs and wants to get better at reading. Next, I have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This was released in 2014. It was a finalist for the National Book Award, and I loved this book. I just read it last year, and I think it needs to make a comeback because I don't recall a lot of people on YouTube talking about it. This is a post-apocalyptic literary fiction. It follows a group after society as we know it is basically ended because of a widespread disease. This group of people goes from settlement to settlement, performing Shakespeare and classical music in order to keep art alive in this new world. It was so good. I plan on rereading it this year because I liked it so much, and I need more people to talk to about it. So if you've read this book, please let me know. My last book is actually a new release, but I don't think enough people are talking about it, and it's called Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse, and this is a urban fantasy with some romance thrown in, and it is just so good. It's super fast-paced, really fun to read. Rebecca Roanhorse is I think Native American. So Rebecca Roanhorse writes about like Native American culturally inspired gods and monsters, and it's just so interesting, and the characters are interesting. The main character is such a badass, but also complicated in that she's a little emotionally unavailable. I wish more people would talk about it. If you're in the mood for like a book that's just a good time but still well written, check that one out. And the last prompt is Invisibility Cloak. Passed through generations, the cloak has the ability to make its wearer invisible. Name 3 books that you want to pass on and share with your children, family, friends, etc. So first, my first interpretation is a book that I would want to pass down like to the next generation, and that is The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. This is a children's picture book that's like Christmas themed. This copy is super fucked up because I've had it since I was a child. It's got rips and tears to the dust jacket, but the illustrations are so beautiful. I love them so much. And the story is like sweet and a little sad. When I was young, I thought it was just cute and fun, but now that I'm older, it's a little bittersweet. And this particular copy was given to me by my grandparents who have since passed away, so this particular copy is what I would want to pass down because it has a lot of emotional value for me. They wrote a little note in it for me, so I treasure this book. Next is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and this is just a book I want to give to everyone I know because I love it so much, and it's a kind of take on the superhero story, if you haven't heard of it, where these 2 friends that studied in school together have since become rivals, and it's told in 2 timelines, when they're in school and in the future when one of them has escaped from prison. And it's so intense, but also this like give and take friend and foe relationship they have going on is so interesting. I just want everyone to read it. I also feel like it's a good starter sci-fi because it's set in our world, so it's very recognizable and there's not a lot of world building needed. And a lot of people I know don't read sci-fi, and they need to get into it. And this is a good starter. The last book I want to give to everyone I know is a recent read of mine called The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I just read this last month, and it's a fantasy story set on an Earth-like world, and the plot is so complicated I can't even get into it in this video. It was in my last wrap-up. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link down below. We follow 3 different people in this world: a child who's coming into some power, an adult who's been trained to control this power, and a mother who is trying to track down her child's murderer. Super intense, and again, I want everyone I know to read it. None of the people I know in real life read fantasy. I don't know what they're waiting for. Alright, that's it for this tag. I want to thank Lenny again from the White Book Cottage for tagging me. It was super fun. I'm going to tag 2 newbie booktubers to do this tag. I think they've only been on booktube for a couple of weeks now, so hopefully this will be fun. Even if you're not into Harry Potter, you can still do this tag. The prompts totally make sense, even without context. So they are Sammy at Sammy Reads and Jocelyn at Jocelyn Reads. I'll leave their channels linked down below so you can check them out too. Alright, let me know what you thought of my choices in the comments, or if you have any other suggestions for these prompts, I'd be interested to hear. If you like this video, hit like. I post book-related videos every Wednesday, so if you want to keep up, subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.